All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, glad to be back.
This time, we're going to be diving into the mental game of trading,
Oh, yeah.
which is something that I think a lot of people maybe overlook when they first get into trading.
Right.
And we've got some really interesting sources here that talk about the psychology
Absolutely.
of trading
Yeah.
and how your mind can actually work against you in the market.
It's amazing how many people don't even consider that,
Yeah.
you know?
So our mission today is going to be to kind of uncover what those internal threats are and then hopefully give our listeners some tools that they can use
Right.
to combat those and become more successful traders.
Absolutely. You know, there's a saying that I came across in one of these books that I thought was really powerful, and it goes something like, the most dangerous mistake a trader can make is breaking their trading rules.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and when you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have a trading plan, like, you know, with your entry and exit points and your stop loss orders, all of that stuff, if you just abandon that at the first sign of trouble, it's
Yeah.
like throwing away your roadmap.
Totally. And it's so easy to do
It is.
because emotions get involved, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just a spreadsheet or an algorithm.
Right.
You know, when real money is on the line and you start to see things moving against you,
Fear and greed.
right? It's tough to just stick to the plan, right?
Yeah, fear is a big one, right?
Yeah.
Fear can make you sell way too early.
Oh, I've been there
Right.
so many times.
You see a little dip and you're like, oh no, I'm going to get out now before it gets any worse.
Right. And then, of course, right after you sell, it shoots right back up.
Every time.
And then greed, of course, can make you hold on for too long.
Oh, yeah.
Hoping for those bigger profits.
Yeah.
Even though all the signs are saying, like, it's time to get out.
Right. You're just hoping for that miracle turnaround.
Right. And it rarely happens that way.
Almost never.
Almost never.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, man. This reminds me of a time when I first started trading.
Oh, yeah.
And a friend of mine gave me this, like, hot stock tip.
Okay.
And, of course, I, thought, oh, this can be...
Easy money.
Yeah, easy money. And I completely broke my own rule.
Oh, no.
I didn't do any research. I just jumped right in.
Oh.
And it was a disaster.
Of course.
I lost a significant amount of money.
Right.
And it was just a really good lesson learned the hard way.
It's an expensive lesson to learn.
It is, yeah.
But, a lot of us have to go through that kind of stuff.
Right.
In order to really understand the importance of discipline and having a plan and sticking to it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking of sticking to the plan, let's talk about those three trading enemies that, our sources really focus on: FOMO, greed, and impatience.
Yeah, these are the big ones, right?
The big three.
So let's start with FOMO, that fear of missing out.
Oh, yeah.
This is the one that gets so many people, especially, when the market is moving really fast. You see everybody else making money and you're just sitting there on the sidelines.
Right. It's like watching a party that you weren't invited to.
Right.
Everybody's having fun, and you're like, oh, man, I got to get in on this.
Exactly.
Even if you don't even know what the party's about.
Yeah, but the problem is with that is that you often end up jumping in at the worst possible time.
Right. You buy at the top right before everything comes crashing down.
Exactly. So what can you do about that?
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, I think one of the best things that you can do is to have a watch list.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So you're tracking potential trades.
Okay.
But you're doing it calmly and methodically.
Right.
You're not just jumping in at the first sign of movement.
So you're kind of taking the emotion out of it a little bit?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
You're not letting that FOMO dictate your action.
Okay, that makes sense. And, let's move on to greed. I know we talked about it briefly before, but, how can we kind of understand how greed sabotages our trades in a very specific way?
Well, it's that thing where you've already made a profit.
Okay.
You're up, let's say, 10%.
Yeah.
And you think, well, why not 20?
Right.
Why not 30?
Right.
And pretty soon you're ignoring all the warning signs that are telling you it's time to get out.
Right. You're just so focused on that number going up and up and up.
Right. And then all of a sudden it starts going down and down and down.
Right. And those profits that you had.
They just evaporate.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people talk about, like, letting your winners run.
Right.
But how do you balance that with not getting too greedy?
Right. Well, that's where having a profit target comes in.
Okay.
Right.
You have a number in mind.
Exactly. Before you even enter the trade,
Okay.
you decide, okay, I'm looking to make 15% on this trade.
Right.
And once I hit that target, I'm out.
You're out.
And you can even set a stop loss order
Okay.
so that if the price drops to a certain level,
Yeah.
it automatically sells.
Automatically.
So you lock in your profits.
So you're not tempted to, second guess yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It takes the emotion out of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
So having that profit target is really important, I think.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to that third enemy then. Impatience. How does that one kind of rear its ugly head in our trading?
Well, impatience can make you do a couple of things.
Yes.
One is it can make you enter a trade too early.
Okay.
You're just sitting there, you're like, I'm tired of waiting for the perfect setup.
Right. I just want to get in on something.
Right. You just want to be in the action.
Right.
So you jump in before the setup is really fully formed.
Okay.
And then the other thing that impatience can do is it can make you exit a trade too early.
Oh, okay.
So, you enter a trade and you're not seeing immediate results.
Right.
So you just bail out,
Yeah.
even though your plan was to hold it for a longer period of time.
Right. I feel like that's
Yeah.
like taking a cake out of the oven before it's done. You might be tempted to because it smells so good.
Right.
But if you do it too early, it's going to be a mess.
Exactly. It's going to be a gooey mess.
Yeah. And, I think one of the things that we really need to remember is that trading is a marathon.
Absolutely.
It's not a sprint.
This is not a get-rich-quick scheme.
Right.
You
Right.
got to be patient.
Yeah.
You got to wait for the right setups.
And you got to trust the plan that you put together.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've talked about, FOMO, greed, impatience, and kind of, the specific things that they can cause us to do.
Right.
But what can we actually do to manage these emotions?
So one thing that I think is really helpful is to keep a trading journal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like a diary almost.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
So every time you make a trade, you write down,
Okay.
Why did I enter this trade?
Okay.
Why did I exit the trade?
Yeah.
How was I feeling at the time?
Interesting.
What could I have done differently?
Yeah.
Right.
So you can kind of see the patterns in your behavior.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you can start to make adjustments.
Right. So you start to understand, oh, when I get this feeling, I tend to do this.
Exactly right.
Okay.
So that self-awareness, I think, is really key
Yeah.
to becoming a more successful trader.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the most important thing that our listeners should take away from this conversation?
I would say that your mindset is just as important as your market analysis.
I like that.
You can have the best technical skills in the world,
Right.
but if you can't control your emotions,
There you lose.
you're going to lose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So it's really about mastering your mind before you master the market.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that is a fantastic place to wrap up this deep dive. So for everybody listening out there, now that you know what those internal threats are,
Right.
FOMO, greed, and impatience, what steps can you take to strengthen your own trading psychology?
Yeah.
How are you going to avoid falling victim to these things?
That's the question.
That's the question. Because ultimately, being a successful trader, it starts with mastering your mind.
Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.